elements together. And then that's when I cobbled together. And then Eric here is like, it has to be 24 pages. And again, I am not a comic book aficionado. I'm actually a newbie. So Eric here had to take me through a lot of steps. So I did not know it was called a comic one-shot. So I'm going, okay, so it has to be 24 pages. So I'm going, what can I do for 24 pages? And then it has to be approximately, what, 7 panels or so? 6 to 7, right? So that's what I was doing. And, you know, I was winging it, basically. Okay. Sure.
Pull out the, yeah, we're just gonna take this over here now.
Okay.
Sorry about that. We're all good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
All we need is audio.
So, yeah, so that's what happened. It's just, you know, I put all these elements together. And again, I did not want to spoil the feature film, but I also wanted to introduce something new to the comic book. And this is something Eric was teaching me. Eric was saying it has to be something that's, I guess, more bombastic. It has to, you know, have more explosions or something, you know, something that, because of budgetary reasons, we could not do in the feature film. And the feature film was not very much money, which is why I'm still surprised we won at FanFest over a $1 million film. Our film was $40,000, so there you go. I don't know, I was like really stunned by that one. So what we did was we had, what do you call it, various, and he says it has to be Japanese too, some Japanese. I'm half Japanese, by the way. So, you know, I'm half white, half Japanese, but anyway, I'm going, okay, so some anime kind of thing has to come in. I'm going, what can we do, and what can we do? And we decided to sign, what do you call it, we created a second parallel universe for this.
I want to comment on that Japanese thing. What happened was, the very first public event we did was the Comic and Media Expo, which is in Mesa, Arizona. They have a sister event, which is TaiyoCon. It's an anime convention. It's actually much bigger than the Comic and Media Expo. Much better attended, much bigger convention. And they invited us to participate. And that was one of the things that kind of started this whole process, because it was like, well, how are we going to participate in an anime convention with a sci-fi American film, essentially? So the first thing that I started thinking was of manga and Japanese comic books, and that somehow, because there is an American manga, it's not really as popular anymore, but Tokyo Pop and some of the other publishers used to publish American manga. So I thought, well, maybe we can tie in somehow like that, and we can kind of have like a Japanese-style comic book. So that was and actually, the way that we announced the Indiegogo campaign ended up being at Taiyo. That's how that was our first public announcement of the Indiegogo campaign. We were in their anime viewing room, and they showed our pitch video. So that's kind of how the Japanese thing got in there. It was purely trying to figure out a way to tie in to that event.
I want to add is something that I teach my students is that, you know, the international market for film and all the other aspects of transmedia is really growing, and in particular in the Asian market. Something interesting that I had researched and found, like for example, with the film The Martian, if you notice there was a very heavy presence of the Chinese friends who were helped to kind of save the day in the end. Well, a big part of the financing came from Chinese financing, so you start to see the working together between the American market and a foreign market to really, you know, for many years, so 67% of all of the gross for Hollywood films has been from the international market. So we're really becoming an international population, not just a domestic population when it comes to films and the comic world, etc.
Yeah, just to kind of dovetail on that, you have major films that are considered box office flops domestically, but they're actually profitable because of the international market. I think the last Terminator movie is probably the best example of that. It actually kind of flopped in the American market, but they actually made money internationally because Arnold Schwarzenegger is still a huge star internationally. You know, Green Hornet, yeah, that was another one. I guess they made money internationally. So Suicide Squad did good domestically, didn't it?
It did okay domestically, but really it was the worldwide thing that pushed it.
Yeah.
Matrix is another one that had a lot of Japanese anime, and that was very successful as well. So, in the film, it had the theories and everything else, and then the anime afterwards. They had the Animatrix, I believe.
Yeah,
it was really nice.
Yeah.
And I think it was the global market that actually saved Batman versus Superman. I don't think it was, I don't think it still made its money back domestic. Yeah, that's probably true. Plus DVD sales, that probably wouldn't hurt.
Maybe I can talk for a minute.
Houston, we're
So-
almost there.
You've seen me run around and play tech support, that's not what I do. So, I was doing the best I could. I didn't know so many,
You're doing wonderful.
I didn't know so many cables actually ran behind this thing, they're all hidden,
There's a lot.
hidden in the podium. So I learned something new today. In terms of like, we're talking about like the manga aspect of the book, when Eric contacted me about working on the comic book itself, he actually brought that up. And then Russ was talking about that he loves film noir and wanted to do something that had like heavy cast shadows and stuff. And it made me think of Mike Mignola's work, who actually does Hellboy, if anyone's familiar with the comic book Hellboy. And then when Eric and I were discussing manga, we kept circling around Robotech. Robotech kept coming up over and over and over again. So I don't know if I succeeded in taking Mike Mignola and kind of a Robotech influence and merging it into the artistic style of the book, but it doesn't really look like any book I've ever done previously. It has its own kind of unique look. It's been a very challenging project. Did you guys talk about how the crowdsourcing went with all the likenesses yet?
Oh, we didn't. You're the expert on that now.
Now we have very interesting audio coming out of that.
Chipmunks.
So we have two choices for you, either audio or video. Which one do you want?
We'll just play it on 2 laptops simultaneously.
Oh wait, I'm under the impression that you're going to be hearing our jolly voices instead of seeing some video. So yes, we are going to. So
You're gonna just
we're
next.
just going to go.
Okay.
And we're going to show the artwork very shortly, but I want to describe the campaign. Now, one of the perks that we had for this, and this is where I was very impressed with Dave here. We had 80 cameos in this comic book because we had a perk, and we did this for, I guess, monetary reasons. You know, we're thinking, what can we entice people to actually contribute to our campaign? Well, it turns out people like to be drawn into comic books, and the perk was $20. So, you know, yes, I know. Yeah, I saw that face there. No. Actually, there were 3 tiers of perks. There was a low $20 perk. You just, you know, insert it as a cameo. There's a $50 perk where you have one little word, and then you have a $300 perk where you actually have, and Sarah Marie Singleton here was one of them. She was a nurse in there, and you will see that. And then it's an actual, like, you know, a character in there. So it was very interesting because, and I blame myself, so I did not put a limit to the cameos.
So like an hour or so?
So I did not realize, and I always say this to Eric and to Dave, that we're a victim of our own success. And in this case, we were, because there were a lot of people who wanted cameos. So Dave, thank you so much for drawing each one of those. And with that said, I think we're going to switch over and actually show the cameos. And we're going to go use the computer that is actually functioning, our artist computer.
I noticed these computers are Windows 10.
Yeah, I personally blame Windows for this. And on behalf of Phoenix FanFest, I also apologize for the technical difficulties. Not usually used to this, but thank you so much for trying, Mr. Tech Guy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone keep talking, I'm gonna go
So-
reset the device now.
So,
I'm still Windows 7, by the way.
So yeah, basically, and we had other perks. You know, there's the special thanks credit. It's like in a film. For the feature film, we did an Indiegogo crowdfunding thing also. So this is actually my second time doing this. The first time, which I've never done it before, but for the film, we raised 106%, and this one was 225%. Now this one, of course, was a lower budget than the feature film. So, and then I guess that was the caveat there. But yeah, we had, you know, based on what I did on the first film, what we did is I recorded my lovely mug introducing the project to all of you, basically. Hi, my name is Ross Emanuel, I've done this and that, and this is the reason why I think, you should trust us and be able to do this comic book. And yeah, so we recorded a video, put that together, that was what, I guess, December, January. Then for TaioCon, we had it ready, we had the Indiegogo campaign, we had a launch party. I remember Chris was there, Sarah was there, Timothy, were you there? You were not there, okay. Dave was there, my friend Eric Brown was there with the Cosmic Cafe show, and it was like February maybe 29th or something that we launched it. And then we were like crossing our fingers, and luckily in 2 weeks, in the 60 days, yeah, in 2 weeks we raised 100%. And I was just like really grateful everybody could do that. And then it just kept going up and up and up and up at that point. So at that point I realized we had extra money to work with, which is why we were able to publicize, and somebody was mentioning at different events, whether it be Maryland or whatnot, and I've been going to quite a lot of these events to do that. So, and at the same time, we planned a release party, which is what's going to happen today. Oh, look who is that on the screen there. It's this lovely lady, Sarah Marie Singleton, and that was one of the cameo purchases for $300 that you were able to get that. So, thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
So with that, Dave, you want to take over?
I guess so. Yeah, we can talk about the pages. This is probably the part where you stretch. I've got this page here. At some point, we're going to complete this page. This is page 18. This is the last page in the book. This is an example of what happens when you tell people for 20 bucks they can get drawn into a comic. Now, here's the important thing to remember. This is not the only scene like this. This is just one of them.
Thanks, David.
Oh, you're welcome. But if we activate some of these other layers, you can see some of the other things that are going on here on this particular page. So what we're actually going to do, if you'll notice, a lot of these panels have an effect that goes over them. And so what we're going to do at some point is I'm going to apply this effect, and we're going to officially call this page done. Al was talking about the lettering earlier. If I turn this layer on, we've got lettering. That magical.
And do you see like that one guy saying condors if you turn the light? That was the $50 part right there. So you paid $50 for that.
I just want to point out from a production standpoint, you can see what we're trying to do here is that we could not do scenes with huge crowds like that, football players, combat aircraft in the air. I mean, that's really what it's all about in terms of expanding the occupants' world. We couldn't do that in our film, And I have to say, as I'm looking at this on the big screen, because usually I get my updates on my phone when Dave sends me something to let me know that he's finished something or he's working on something, and it comes at very odd hours sometimes. But look at this stuff. That is awesome, isn't it? I mean, it looks really, really good.
Oh, and I should bring up, we are currently writing Occupants 2, a sequel to the first feature film, and we instructed the writer, Julia Camera, who did the first film, to canonize the comic book. So this universe is going to be explored in the sequel.
Woo. So that's not the last we're going to see of Alan and Nicole then?
Nope.
Very good.
And then you can kind of see here too, like the split between the realities, as you see Nicole walking through this parking lot here in this scene, and then something happens, and then suddenly she's either transported or has a vision of the other world. I'm not going to answer that question for the ones that read it. But you can see kind of how it's I tried to set the panels up in such a way where as you're reading the book, it's if you can clearly see it's one reality or the other. So this effect that's going over, it's kind of like a weird Bandai dot pattern, kind of gray halftone thing. We're going to apply that on the last page, and then once I do that, I can get Russ and Eric to sign off on it here verbally while we're looking at it.
It'll be officially completed.
We're going to call it done.
So we're not done yet.
We're almost done. So, oh yeah.
I have a question now. Do you draw by hand, or is this by just the system itself?
Say again?
Can you explain the process of how you do this? Because I mean, I don't even know how you.
Oh,
Yeah, explain a little bit for us.
How do you do your magic?
No, basically, how do you draw him into a cartoon form?
Well, there's kind of two levels of what's going on here with the likenesses in the book. Because Chris is a character who is in the book so much, as well as Timothy as well, what I tried to do is create kind of a more generalized representation of them, so that it's kind of easier for me to kind of draw them over and over and over again. So if you look at it, you should kind of see enough of a likeness to be like, it's Chris, you know. But it's not like 100% photo referenced either. Now some of the other likenesses and stuff like that, as we're getting down to the wire to complete the book, I pretty much just went directly off of the photo reference. But a lot of the characters that have speaking roles and stuff like that, I actually did take the time to kind of transfer them from the real world and what they would look like in this sort of Robotech Mike Mignola hybrid style. And in terms of the way I work, to answer Chris's question, because I wasn't trying to dodge it, because this isn't a political debate. The book is a hodgepodge of a lot of different things. For some of the environments, I use a lot of CGI work because it helps me to kind of show like that transition you saw between those two parking lots. The parking lot that's pristine in the real world and everything's great, and then the potential parallel universe where everything's gone to heck. A lot of that debris and all that other stuff is actually drawn into the computer. I have a Wacom tablet that I use, and I use this Cintiq. I have a Wacom. And so when I'm drawing on the Wacom tablet, it replicates the movements and the look inside the computer, and then that way you get the drawing. The part of it that always kind of freaks people out is that I actually use an airbrush when I do this in Photoshop. I do not use the pen or the pencil tools because I do not like how they look, so I have a set of custom created brushes that are engineered to replicate my own personal brush work that I've done. I should state that I've been in the comic industry off and on doing work now for over 25 years. And I came in when digital was new. But I started doing everything traditionally. So, you know, at 6 a.m. I'm at the drawing board with the ink and the brush and the pen. And so as technology became more and more a vital part of this, I began to learn how to adapt these tools to replicate what I do in traditional versus what I do digital. So I try to have them be kind of similar. So some of it, and I actually did bring the rough because I thought it'd be interesting. Since there's so few, well, not so few, but since we don't have a 1,000 people in here, we'll just pass them around so people can see it. But I actually do have my pencil roughs, and then you can kind of see those. So typically what happens is I'll take the script, I'll try to figure out the way the panel flow should work. I break it down actually with pencil on paper, kind of figuring out what needs to happen. I would send the roughs to Russ and to Eric, and they would take a look at them and say, yes, no, change this, change that, I'm not sure about this, not sure about that. We kind of clean up the storytelling to make sure it works. And at that stage, I bring it in the computer and I'll take a scan of that, bring it directly in, and I start inking directly over it. And I have two monitors. My workstation is two monitors. So one monitor is typically like photo reference, so I just have it up so I can see what it is I'm working on. And then the other one is actually my workstation. And then my photo reference monitor also has my tools. So all my different, you know, pens, brushes, whatever, my presets are all on one side. And then the CGI stuff, it depends. For some of this stuff, I did kind of polarize the effects and do kind of some overlays, and then I retouch it by hand to kind of give it kind of the look that I wanted it to have. And then there's other aspects of it where I would bring the model in and I would just redraw it because I didn't like the results I was getting from the model, and it was mostly there but not right. So it's kind of a mix of the two, but it does for me still traditionally start like pencil and paper, and then when I start going into the finishing stages, it moves to the computer, and then it kind of lives in that space from that point on. But I'm going to grab the roughs out and we'll pass them around so people can kind of see them. So,
And that's the secrets of being a comic artist.
Now you know.
Well, that and fairy dust is another big aspect.
This is exactly 10 minutes. Okay, so,
Sorry we couldn't let you guys see the trailer today.
find it online, right?
I hope so.
What questions do you guys have for these guys? Anything? Or-
Oh, yeah. To the, Vic, I can never pronounce his last name. The voice actor, Vic,
Mignana?
yeah, Mignana, yeah. And the other question is, you're a letterer,
Yes.
and if it's done in Photoshop, don't they just type the letters in nowadays, or?
There was any number of ways. Traditionally, lettering was done by hand,
Yes.
back in the good old days, and you cut out the balloon and pasted it directly on the page. More and more, it's just become so much easier to do it digitally. What I generally will do is use a program called Illustrator, which is kind of like a companion to Photoshop. And that's where I'll make my word balloons. But Photoshop has gotten more and more robust as far as its ability to use text. You wouldn't think 5 years ago to even use Photoshop for your text manipulation. But the more it evolves, the better it's gotten. So I found Photoshop to be really simple to use. It does everything that you need a traditional lettering program to use. Now, moving forward, a lot of artists are using a new, it's not even a new program, but it's called Manga Studio.
Yes.
Yeah, Manga Studio is almost becoming industry standard. It's slowly taking over Photoshop by little bits and pieces. And part of that is because everything that you need to do in a comic, you can do in this one program. So I wouldn't have to jump from Illustrator to Photoshop to all these other things to do my lettering. I could just do it all right there.
Oh, and do you recognize that person on the screen? It's this wonderful man right there.
There you go.
He plays two versions of himself in the comic book.
Oh, this is terrific.
Videographer today.
I think we
So
can,
three, this is the third.
Hey,
Jack of all trades.
Mike,
But yes, he's one of the main characters. Timothy Lee Conley plays
just
him.
go slow. Let me focus.
I thought you looked familiar.
Moving one at a time slowly.
So, yeah, anybody else have questions?
That's good. Next one.
What are some of the challenges that you guys have faced going from the
We could do
movie
this.
to the comic, like consistency of the world?
First we get our
and
comic.
When you're trying to
Do
flesh
that?
things out, but you're like, wait, that's not
Well-
quite right, or...
Yeah, for instance, and I got confused at some point. Like, I think in one panel, what was it? Picardo's character is like, oh yeah, they were transporting one object from this world to the other. And I got confused. I'm going, no, isn't it the other way around? And then I had to look in the film, going, no, you guys are right. Something like that. So yeah, the consistency is kind of complex, I guess,
That's
because it literally has to tie together. These are testimonials